My name is Ariel Cohen. I'm a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. I'm also the principal of a company called International Market Analysis, and we're a boutique consulting firm dealing primarily with strategic communications and with energy and whatever the client needs.
The Loisach Group was organized to see if we can figure out a way to re-engage with Russia, Germany, and the United States. Why do you think this conversation is so important to happen now?
First of all, Germany is the largest and strongest country in Europe. It has an economy north of $4 trillion. It is an established democracy. It has been one for 70 years. And it is the most important connection the U.S. has in Europe. Probably these days, maybe more important than our special relationship with the U.K. Second of all, over the last 30 years, I think the United States, after the victory in the Cold War, is drifting away from Europe. There are more and more people in the United States with origins other than European, from Latin America, from Asia. And we saw George W. Bush was involved with the Middle East and Afghanistan for obvious reasons because of 9/11. Barack Obama articulated pivot to Asia, but did not back it up with enough economic muscle. And now Mr. Trump is still talking about fighting ISIS in the Middle East, but also there's a strong faction in his administration that is looking to counter the Chinese influence. In fact, I'm surprised how moderate the Trump administration was after all the rhetoric of our election campaign, not declaring China as a currency manipulator, not going to a trade war and imposing import tariffs, but actually trying to negotiate with China. So Europe sort of fell off the wagon, and as someone who was born in Europe, who spent his life on Russian and post-Soviet policy, I am a strong supporter of engagement in Europe, with Germany, and also with developing a proper policy of dealing with Russia.
It seems like our engagement, at least from the U.S. perspective, has dropped out over the last 10, 15 years. And now we're trying to re-engage with Russia, and even with some of our European neighbors or partners or traditional partners. Do you see us possibly having a problem with being stuck with a 20th century Cold War mindset as we enter into these discussions, or should we discard some of our own thoughts and come up with a different way to engage?
When I said today the 20th century model and 21st century conflict, what I talked about is primarily the conventional weapons discussion, which is an important discussion. Nuclear weapons discussion is a 20th century discussion. It's an important discussion. But in the 21st century, you have the increase of transnational threats. Just these days, we're talking about a massive cyber attack. In my mind, it's only a matter of time when major infrastructure projects will be disrupted by cyber attacks by national or transnational actors. This should be a part of our discussion, and also information warfare. Even beyond the information warfare, the competition of different systems of ideas, system of worldviews that now distinguish the East and the West. I think the Russians and Foreign Minister Lavrov just recently said that we are in the post-Western world. I do not buy it for a moment. I think the majority of values of the majority of economically active people on the planet are essentially Western or Western derived, even in places like East Asia. So I think we need to be more focused, more emphatic, and also do a better job communicating our ideas, our values, and our priorities to countries, to peoples like the Russians and the Chinese. And I think we can do a better job communicating our ideas much better than we did so far. I'm talking about the governments who communicate. I'm talking about non-government actors, universities, think tanks, etc. And it's not just us being hit by a Russia Today or a Sputnik. It is the US, Germany, other European countries using the massive tools of communication, online and conventional media to communicate these ideas and values.
Do you see if there should be one nation leading this effort towards re-engagement? Is it all three, or is there a possible partner out there that could kind of broker a re-engagement with Russia?
I think it's a wonderful question. I think we're early in the Loisach process. I'm expecting the leadership to bring in eventually the Russians to hear what they have to say, but also other Europeans probably. Maybe the French, the British I mentioned, Scandinavians, and Eastern and Central Europeans. The Poles would be an important element of such a discussion. So it probably will evolve into a multilateral discussion. Hopefully it'll be manageable and small enough. Otherwise it'll become a cacophony, and we don't want that. But I think that we absolutely need to keep in mind the security of Europe is at stake. Now with a cyber attack on the US political system, our security in the US is also at stake, and the Russians should not think that they are invulnerable. In fact, I know that the Russian cyber system is not perfect, and the Russian economy is probably 3 times weaker than the German economy and more than 12 times weaker than the American economy. As the great Russian writer Vladimir Nabokov once said, people who live in glass houses should not throw stones.
And just my last question, is there anything else that you think is really important for the Loisach Group to consider as we move forward, or an area that I haven't mentioned that's worth mentioning?
On the one hand, it is very comfortable for me to be with colleagues here. And the colleagues are international relations, military policy, and political scientist types. That's sort of the soup that I come from myself, think tanks and government. But on the other hand, I would like to see people with different skill sets, like maybe some high-level IT guru to talk about what does the current cyber world means and IT world means for this conflict we're discussing. We're in the middle of conflict. So let us have no illusions. We are in the middle of a conflict. On the other hand, probably we did not hear people with strong economic background. We do not have economists in the room to come and analyze what is this economic disbalance that I'm talking about when together US and the EU are north of $35 trillion economy. Russia is only $1.5 trillion economy. So the differential of times 17. So this is another very important aspect that we did not cover today, but we may cover in the future meetings. And the last one I want to mention is demography. The Russian, Slavic, Christian Orthodox population is flattening out or declining. The West is still much, much bigger in terms of its demographic characteristics than Russia. Again, another weakness that, of course, the West did not exploit, but in the meantime, that discussion probably would help us to understand the dynamic and the engagement.